Hi everybody, I hope you are well. I'm here to provide another update to you all and an opportunity to answer more of your questions. As the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic evolves, things are continuing to change daily, and I therefore have quite a few new things to report back on. I'm sure you will have many questions about JobKeeper subsidy the federal government announced on Monday evening. Last week, I said I would organise to have Martina Smythe, General Manager of People and Culture, and here she is, on the video so she could answer your HR questions. So the timing is perfect for her to join me today. Before we talk about JobKeeper announcements and what it means for you, I'd like to give you a quick update on a few other things first. I know you don't need reminding, but I'd like to reiterate that the extreme measures we are taking as a country for the health and safety of our community. I think it's fair to say the impacts of the coronavirus on Australia are much bigger than any of us had ever expected. This is why we're all working through things together as they happen. So when you hear government announcements and updates, I hear them at the same time as you. I'd like to thank you for your patience and support as we work alongside the executive leadership to navigate through this very, very difficult territory. So you may have heard reports that the spread of the coronavirus is slowing in Australia. This is indeed great news. However, all this should reinforce to you that this has occurred as a direct result of us all adhering to self-isolation and social distancing. While the spread is slowing, it has not stopped. And until we have a vaccine, we will never truly be protected from the virus. So I don't mean to put a negative spin on some of that positive news, but I do want to assure you that we are all approaching the situation I want to make sure that we're all approaching the situation in the most responsible and realistic way possible. When I spoke to you last week, across the world, there had been over 500,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus, with over 23,000 deaths. These figures have now sit at 850,000 confirmed cases and 42,000 deaths respectively. In Australia, we have just under 5,000 cases, and sadly there have been 20 deaths by this awful virus. Whilst we have taken a catastrophic hit across our employees and finances at the Y, we are working hard behind the scenes to speak with government on how we can ensure that we can survive as an organisation. We want to ensure you have a workplace to return to. I've never spoke to so many ministers in the federal government, in South Australian government, Victorian government. With some of them, I have daily calls with. I encourage you to check the staff and volunteer resource page to remain up to date on all things coronavirus and the YMCA. The website is emergency.ymca.org.au, which you will all have received via the link in the SMS and email. So one big win that we've had this week was securing access for all staff and volunteers to Les Mills On Demand premium service for free. I hope you've all been enjoying the opportunity to stay active while isolating at home. We have received some really positive feedback and are so glad we've been able to provide this to our staff, volunteers, as well as members and customers. I last heard over 9,000 people had signed up for access, which is just brilliant. Another exciting thing that we have achieved at the YMCA is the YMCA swimming lesson activity book. This is available to both YMCA and King's Swim children and is designed to help keep water safety and swimming education up to date at home. It has been a huge piece of work pulled together to enable the children in our swimming programs and the opportunity to keep learning and busy while they're not able to get into the pool. The program launched yesterday with the first edition being sent out to all of our swimming lesson members nationally, and we will continue to add new resources to the YMCA Victoria Swimming Lessons webpage in the coming weeks, with a series of practice at home videos coming soon, along with more activity book editions. As you may also be aware, our early learning centres are still open as the government has identified childcare as an essential service during this time. We have, of course, experienced a huge reduction in bookings, so have unfortunately still had to stand down some of our early learning centre and childcare centre staff. I do want to assure you though, we have restructured as much as we possibly can to maintain as many full-time staff as possible, for example, by moving educators from early learning centres to school holiday programs. We are also looking into ways to do digital vacation care for those children that can't attend at this time. And we are looking at more ways to help you train at home, such as LinkedIn Learning. It's been great to hear that so many YMCA people have been placed into jobs with Coles. And I want to let you know that we've just heard from Coles that over 1,000 of our staff have successfully secured or are just about to secure these temporary positions. And similarly, 650 staff at Woolworths. I'm so glad you're able to use this opportunity to provide you with some cash flow during this time. Please remember to take care of yourselves, eat well and get enough sleep. Taking care of ourselves during this time is so important. And I also want to remind you of EAP during this time. We work with LifeWorks, who, as I talked about last time, can help you with things like financing, budgeting, as well as mental health and wellness. You can find the details of our EAP on the staff and volunteers resource page. I'm now going to hand over to Martina to talk a little bit more about JobKeeper.
Thanks, Carolyn. A few other messages, because I've got the opportunity to address some of the frequently asked questions that are happening at the moment. Just firstly, I'd like to clarify some confusion that may be out there in relation to stand down and termination of employment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good. Okay. Being stood down is not the same as being terminated. You do have a job to come back to, and when we reopen our workplace. Across the country, we've seen news of many businesses that have had to make the same decision. Virgin Australia has stood down 8,000 staff, and Myer has had to stand down 10,000 staff and close their stores. We are definitely not alone in our plight, but I want to assure you that the whole executive have been working around the clock to do everything we possibly can to support our staff. This leads me on to the JobKeeper subsidy. As with everyone around the country, well, we are receiving the same updates at the same time as everyone else. As soon as we learn any new information, I can assure you it is immediately, on being announced, we are immediately looking at what this information will mean for the Y. We are working as quickly as we can to ensure that we can provide you with as much information and support as we can in relation to the JobKeeper payment, and working towards its implementation for all of our valued staff. However, currently the government has indicated that these payments may not commence until May 2020, as the legislation has not yet been passed in federal parliament. It is anticipated that this will occur within the next 2 weeks, and then once this has occurred and it has been passed through parliament, and as soon as we have further information in relation to the Y's eligibility and the processes that we need to go through, we will update you accordingly. And as Carolyn has already stated, we have our emergency site and we have our YNet. If you go onto there, that's where we'll be providing all of the information, and we're developing as much as we can the frequently asked questions. We will post these on our site along with all other information as it becomes available, and I would encourage all staff to visit this site regularly as it's being updated daily, sometimes even hourly. There is currently a good information sheet that has been produced by the ATO, and we've put that link up on the site. It's got a number of different scenarios on there, and that will help explain the payment in relation to your own personal circumstances, as it may be different depending on your role within the YMCA. As the legislation hasn't been finalised yet, it's difficult to provide direct answers to all of your questions, but we will do our best based on the information that we have so far. Please be assured that we are working with our lawyers and with the government to make sure that we can make this process as simple as possible for all of you.
Thank you, Martina. I think very comprehensive. We have 700 people participating in this session, and I'm sure many of you will have many questions. So please click on the link Q&A Hopefully we don't go too fast and I lose the plot here, but what Martina spoke about is that we may not be able to answer all your questions at this time because the JobKeeper has not been legislated. So we don't know all the rules, but we're going to, we want you to actually ask us the hardest questions you can so that we know all of them. And if we don't get to all of them today, we will endeavour to answer them on our resource page and as indeed the information comes to hand from the government. Now, I'm just not seeing any questions. Is that because there's none or is that because I'm not seeing the questions? Oh no, it says Q&A. Here is it that? Ah, hold on. Okay, so Sophie said, that's untrue, Martina. Scott Morrison asked businesses to begin payment now through the ATO website and businesses will be reimbursed in May. So look, I'm going to start taking that one. That's a really good question, Sophie, and we wish that Scott Morrison had not said that because it is not quite true. So firstly, what I want to assure you is the very first step that we have to take is we have to register ourselves with the ATO to become an eligible employer. And I can assure you within hours of this message, our finance team have put that into the ATO in order to try to register us. Unfortunately, as yet, we have not heard back. Secondly, as Martina spoke about, this hasn't been legislated yet. And the government is not allowed to pay anything and nor are employers able to pay anything until that legislation actually happens. I have written to the Minister of the Federal Minister of Charities, Assistant Minister of Charities, and asked him for that to be updated and for Scott Morrison to be able to give more accurate information about that. Secondly, what I want to talk to you about is the magnitude of this payment for the YMCA. So with over 5,000 staff unfortunately stood down at the YMCA, the payment per month will be around $15 million to us. We have never had $15 million in our bank account in unencumbered amounts. So what we have requested from the Minister is to get that payment upfront as soon as possible because otherwise we are physically not able with cash to be able to pay you. What I can assure you though is we are committed to paying as soon as we get the information and the payment from the ATO. We will be making payments immediately and we will have enough resources and understanding of how this works to make sure those payments come to you through our payroll.
If I could just add on that, it is based on our current payroll system, as is with all payroll systems, is set up directly with the ATO. So they have access to that list of employees. All we will need to do once this is all finalised is actually send them through that list to confirm that the staff are still working for the YMCA and that will start the process off. That is, of course, once we are given the green light that we are eligible for this, and we will be doing everything we possibly can to ensure that we make the payment as soon as possible.
Okay, so Martina, I have a few other different questions.
Sure.
How will YMCA support people with refugee status?
That one we can't answer as of yet because I don't even think that that's been considered. There are a number of areas, for example, what we can say is if you have a staff member or you are a staff member who is in that category, you just need to let us know, and you can either go onto the coronavirus email or go onto the HR inbox email and send us through that email, and we'll be able to work with you and also with the government to determine whether that person does have eligibility or not. There are a number of different categories that we're currently looking at. For example, also overseas students are another one that fall into that area.
Fantastic, Martina. And it does sound like there's a lot more that we need to find out about this in the coming weeks. And what we can assure you is we will keep on finding out about as many personal circumstances as we can so that we can provide some answers to that. Karen said, so glad we all still have jobs to come back to. So that is indeed true. Adela said, I presume you have registered for the benefit. Can you please clarify? Yes, and that is what I was saying. So what we have to do first for the job keeper is we have to register ourselves as an organisation. The rules around that is you have to have under $1 billion of turnover. We comply with that. And the other rule that we understand is that we have to have at least 30% of our business impacted, and that is our turnover. And we have 90% of our business impacted by the closures at this stage. So we can't see any reason why we would not become an eligible employer. However, we are waiting on that information from the ATO at this stage.
Can I just also say on that is that we're not waiting until we find out that we are eligible. We're doing all the work we can in the background to get set up, making that assumption, working with payroll, working with all of our sector leads to make sure that once we get the word that we are eligible, we can start notifying our staff.
All right, great. And I have got a question from Kingswim staff. Will we be looked after as well with the JobKeeper payment? And yes, Kingswim staff are all part of the YMCA family. So whether you work for Kingswim or different brands like Happy Days, certainly you will be looked after as well. The next question is, while EAP is a valuable service, I believe staff members only have access to 3 sessions or credits per financial year in normal conditions. Has this limit been increased during this period? I will hand that over to Martina.
No, it hasn't in this period. However, as we have always done, we work with our EAP provider and our staff and their families in difficult circumstances. So if we have a staff member who feels, or the EAP also can sometimes send us an email, and they don't give us the name of the employee, but they give us the circumstances and ask if they can have an increase in the number of sessions. We are very, very comfortable in looking at that and working with our staff. So we haven't done a blanket increase of over 3 sessions, but please, once again, let us know.
Fantastic. So thank you all for this great information you are sharing with us. Thank you, Brooke, for that. Thank you for this great information. Oh, no, sorry. Will you be making up the difference between the 1,500 and our normal pay? You will see some, I will hand over to Martina in a sec with this, but you will see that if you are working, then you will get your normal pay. If you are stood down, the process there, depending on your individual circumstance, is that you will be paid the 1,500, but I will hand that over to Martina.
Yes, and this has been another area of confusion, but we have seemed to have a lot of clarity around this now, and that is that all staff will receive the $1,500 payment. That is even if currently you may not be earning $1,500 a fortnight. So all staff will receive that $1,500. Where the areas, and there are some different scenarios, and they are on the website at the moment, but it may be that if you're working full-time, yes, you will actually get your normal current salary as it exists now. The area where we have to be a little bit careful about answering the question, because we don't have the answers to this yet, is what happens to those people in the middle where you're earning some money, but it might be more than $1,500. We don't know the answer to that yet, but we do know if you're working your normal salary and you are coming to work, then yes, you'll just get your normal salary. And if you're working less than $1,500 or stood down, you will get the full $1,500.
Okay, so next question. This one's a tricky one, Martina. I'm not eligible for any other government support, for example, job seeker payments, because I am an international student. However, I've been working for the Y for over a year. How likely is it for me to be an eligible candidate?
Okay, based on what we currently know, you would not be an eligible candidate for the JobKeeper allowance. I can't make a comment on the job seeker allowance because that would depend on the conditions of your international student visa. One of the things I do know from all of the jobs that we have been posting is that we have had staff in that category who have picked up work with either Coles or Woolies or one of the other organisations, Spotless, for example, where we've been looking at providing jobs for our staff. So more than happy for you to get in contact with either your manager or the People and Culture team directly. But certainly we would encourage people in that area to do everything they can working with us to try and find some of those interim employment opportunities that we've got available.
And we've been working really hard to create those relationships. And indeed, we have a relationship that is just about to come to fruition with Victoria Government, where we understand there's somewhere between 250 to 750 jobs that we can offer YMCA employees. The next question, are you going to be able to push for employers working less than 12 months with the Y to get payment?
Do you want me to take that one?
Yes, thank you.
I think there will be a number of organisations and groups pushing for that. Currently, the government's position has been very clear on that. If you are an employee with less than 12 months, you go for the job seeker allowance, and if you are more than 12 months, you go for the job keeper allowance.
Okay, Martina, I have a second job. Am I still able to work some of this job? Am I still able to get JobKeeper if I've still lost the income from Kingswim?
Okay. You will get your whatever is considered to be your primary employer, and it may be that at some point in the nomination process you need to say who that employer is. You will get the $1,500 through that process. There isn't clarification yet around additional income from other jobs. So that one's watch this space. As soon as we've got the information, we'll provide it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's with all of these, you know, we will be providing more and more information. Here we have one. It keeps on moving though. Will we keep receiving this payment until we are able to start back at work again, even if it is 6 months or more? Martina.
Yeah, currently it is a 6-month payment and there is a cap on that 6 months. However, the Treasurer did say the other day that this would be something they would review depending on where and what happens in the Australian economy and with the COVID-19 over the next 6 months. So I'm sure that if things don't get better, the government will look at what other support they can give to both employers and employees. But at this point in time, it's a 6-month payment.
Martina, can we use leave entitlements to make up the difference between the $1,500 and our normal pay?
Okay, again, that hasn't been clarified by the government, but we would assume so because you can do that with normal leave entitlements and part work. However, there is always there's a chance that the government might put a stipulation on that and they might say you have to use one or the other. We are more than happy for our staff to top up the payment with their annual leave, but we'll just have to wait and make sure that the government says that's okay.
Okay. A few people have asked this question. If we're casuals who are eligible, will we be required to come back to work or will we get paid to stay home?
We would love everybody to come back to work and that's what we're hoping for. But there are a number of issues that we need to work through, things around superannuation and all of those sorts of things, what staff will be eligible to do. In the recreation space, we're going to have the situation that regardless of whether people can come back to work or not, or we've got the money to pay them, the recreation centres are closed, so there may not be work for them to do. What we are looking into also, though, is again working with our partners and certainly in that not-for-profit space, how can we assist other organisations and how can we assist in the volunteering space? Obviously, though, there are some legal implications around all of those things that we will work through.
This one's going to be another tricky one, Martina. I'm not sure we know the answer yet. If we get the $1,500 from May, then will our annual leave be given back to us?
That will totally, again, depend on the individual circumstances. We will need to work through that because there would be the implications, for example, if you want to have your leave balance revoked, then you would have to pay back that money. That money might be more than the $1,500. So it's a bit of a minefield. But we, again, these are the things, it's great that these questions get asked, because then we can work through what the various scenarios look like, so that our staff have some opportunities and choices in this, so that we can make it as easy for everyone, given the really difficult circumstances everyone's in.
If I'm a casual worker, am I eligible?
Yes, if you've been with the organisation for more than 12 months as of the 1st of March 2020.
Fantastic. There's one about can I keep my swimming accreditations even if we can't teach for the next 3 months? Will we lose that? I can take that one. We are working with all of our accreditations, with Life Saving Victoria, with AusSwim, to work through what accreditations we can give you, how they can give it to you digitally, and to ensure that we can maintain all accreditations. We want to make sure that when we're ready to come back to work, you're all ready and ready to come back and to be teaching straight away. Okay, so next one. How does it work for staff who are still working but less than their contracted hours? I'm currently working 15 to 20 hours a week, but am full-time normally. Do we keep working? Do we work full-time hours, etc.? How does that work?
Again, it will depend on the individual and their circumstances and what the work is that they currently do. So over the next period of time, there may be some positions that are stood down and then we bring them back. How many hours do we bring the person back? What is the amount of hours that they're working? What does that work out in terms of salary versus the $1,500 payment? We don't have the answers to all of those things yet. But again, I think these are the sorts of things that will really be clarified once the legislation is, my understanding is they're in the process literally of writing it at the moment. So we're not quite sure what those rules are actually going to say, but as soon as it gets passed through Parliament, then we will all have a copy of that. We'll be able to see what the rules are, and then we can really make it clear to all of our staff what's best for them.
This is a good question, Martina. Will the JobKeeper payments start from May or when we stopped working? I think what this question is trying to get at is, when does the effective payment date start?
Yeah, the government has said that the effective date is from the 30th of March. So even though the payment won't come through until May, it will be backdated till the 30th of March.
Very good. Okay, so we're looking at 6 months plus time frame for the recreation centres to open again. You know, I wish I knew that I had a crystal ball and I could answer that question for you, Pepita. What I can say is that we know that we were, the local councils were early to shut recreation centres. So I would suspect that we will reopen again once we're back into stage 1 restrictions. And we hope that it is somewhere between, my guess is 3 to 6 months, but we really don't know. We really don't have that crystal ball. What I can say is that the health data is starting to, as people are calling it, flatten the curve. If we can the whole community can self-isolate and stop this infection of COVID-19 spreading, then we will all get back to work quicker than we, hopefully quicker than we even expected. Australia is doing a good job. And I'm not going to say great job because we probably got started a bit late, but we're doing a good job on this. Will Kingswim reopen when, will Kingswim reopen where schools go back? Look, at this stage, we haven't made a decision with regard to that. I think we're waiting. We're now in stage 3. At this stage, stage 3 does indicate that we are not allowed to be open. A Kingswim is not allowed to be open. If that eases up when schools reopen, then obviously we can revisit that decision. Okay, so when we get on the other side of this crisis, will there be a mass return or a ramp up of centres based upon capacity? Martina, do you want to take that or do you want me to take it?
Probably, I think it'll be a bit of both, and that some of that will depend on our council partners and working with them. We don't even know yet what the criteria around the process of reopening. It may be that at the moment they're totally closed. They might open them gradually and say, okay, we're going to do the 15 and keeping the 1.5 metres, and they might make organisations ramp back up slowly. So a little bit, we will just work with the government on what they say that we are allowed to do, and we'll certainly, I mean, we all want the Y to be successful, and we all want to be back at work as soon as we possibly can. So that's our aim and that's our intention. But as Carolyn said, we want to make sure that we flatten the curve and that we get back to work as soon as we possibly can. So we'll all work together on that one.
This one's a good one for you, Martina. Permanent part-timers who work less than 1 year, are they eligible for job keepers?
My understanding at this point in time, again, we need to clarify it, but they will be eligible because they're not casuals. So anyone who is with us on the 1st of March is eligible if you're a permanent employee. Mm-hmm. If you're a casual employee, you have to have been with us for 12 months as at the 1st of March. So
just to clarify that, if you are a permanent employee, part-time or full-time, on the 1st of March 2020, then you are eligible.
Yes.
Yeah, just to get the years right.
Yes.
Okay, I'm on youth allowance and not eligible for job seeker. I have not been with the Y for 12 months yet. So what happens in regards to job seeker? We probably don't have enough information about you to answer that one because we don't know whether you're permanent or part-time. But what about youth allowance?
Yeah, I think the thing is the government's made clear that this is an allowance for people who don't get the other allowances. So there is a job seeker allowance, there's a job keeper allowance, and then there is, there's other disability payments and youth allowances. What will happen is when we put our paperwork into the government, we'll go through the ATO and they will have reference to what people's other allowances are. And at the end of the day, they will make that call whether someone is eligible or not.
Okay, here's another good one for you, Martina. Should we register our interest in JobKeeper program at ato.gov? If so, what is our ABN number we should enter?
No, that's for the employer to do, and we've already done that. So what will happen is employees don't need to actually register for the JobKeeper payment. The employers need to do that part. What will happen is once we are given our eligibility and we work through our notification process with the government, what we don't know yet is whether we are just going to notify our staff individually or whether there's going to be a form to fill out. That's the bit we don't know yet. But you can just basically, if you are an employee of the Y and you are eligible, we will get in contact with you and tell you what's happening. Okay,
here's one for me. It's basically saying, why do we have to wait to get, why does the Y have to wait to get paid from the government? Can't we use money put away for staff's annual leave? So what I will say is 1 month's payment is $15 million. Staff's annual leave that we have put away is around about $10 million. This payment is 4 times more than what we would normally pay in a month's time to our staff. So our staff are going to be getting considerably more money than we normally pay. And so that's why we're just not in a financial position, in a cash position to be able to pay it until we receive the money from the government. Oh gosh, these questions are coming through absolutely thick and fast now. I think in the interest of time, what we might do is we might answer 2 more questions. I might wrap up, and then what we will do is we will come back and absolutely answer every single one of these questions on our Q&A within the website that we have, our emergency website. So here we go. Sorry if you've already answered, as I've just joined. I've never received my stand down letter. Does it come by mail? Martina?
No, and go straight to your manager and tell your manager that you haven't received a stand down letter, and that manager will come straight to me and we'll find out what the situation is. Oh, but I will say one thing on that. We did find with the emails, some people's did go to, there was one of our rec centres where for some reason a lot of those ones went to people's spam. So the first thing I would do is say, have a look in your junk mail email box to make sure it didn't end up in your junk email. But if it's not there, please let your manager know straight away and we'll get onto that.
Okay, and it came by email. We have done a survey. We understand that the majority of staff want us to communicate somewhat by text, but remember that's very limited, but they want us to communicate by email. So that is going to be our preferred method because that is what you asked us to do. So please continue to look at your email to make sure that you're getting our emails. And as Martina said, make sure they're not coming through to junk. So I've been working for the Y for 7 years, but just came back to work on the 9th of March from my maternity leave. Am I still entitled to the payment?
My understanding, well, first of all, congratulations. And yes, I think that you are, but again, that is another question that we have put forward at the moment. But you are an employee of the Y, you would have been coming back to work in March, so yes, you would be eligible, we think.
Okay, fantastic. So look, I think I am going to leave it there. I want to thank Martina so much for answering so many of those questions. Every single one of these questions, I can assure you, will get answered. I do want to sort of reiterate the numbers that we're talking about here so that you understand the magnitude of what we're trying to work through. We think that this is an absolutely fabulous benefit to help you during this very, very difficult time. And I want to assure you we're absolutely committed to making these payments. We are not holding them up, but for anything else that we simply do not have that sort of cash in our bank account. However, we have been assured by the government that we will get that money and it will be no later than just after May 1. And we are fighting our hardest to see if we can get them to make that payment to us earlier so that we can make an earlier payment to you. But we can't make any assurance. But I can tell you, I was up all night last night writing that letter to the minister to make sure that it was perfect and working really hard to make sure we can do as much as we possibly can for you. So it will be dated back to, so you won't lose out on anything. Even if we pay it in May, it will be dated back, that payment, to the 30th of March. So you will get a lump sum, probably for 3 payroll runs of 3 payments during that time. So I would encourage you obviously to work through your cash flow to make sure that works for you. And we will continue to absolutely answer your questions as much as possible as we find out the answers to these questions. We are in it together and we're working our absolute hardest to get you the answer to all of these questions. So anyway, with that, I would just like to thank you. There are a lot of people, 800 or 900 people on this, webinar. And we're really excited that you all came on, and we will have another one soon. As soon as we start getting more and more of these questions, we will come back on and we'll have Martina and myself providing you this information. Thank you so much for bearing with us. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.